Both of our readings from scriptures today involve visitors. In Genesis, it's Abraham and Sarah and their retinue are camped by the Oaks of Mamre when 3 visitors appear. There is a flurry of intense activity as everything is made ready to offer the proper sort of wilderness welcome to travellers, hospitality towards strangers, demands that food and drink are offered and that they may be invited to rest a while. In our reading from Matthew, a whole succession of visitors cross the page for us. We find Jesus as the constant traveller and visitor, going about the neighbourhood, stopping off in the cities and villages, and teaching in the synagogues. There are crowds who pay their visits to be near Jesus, to listen to him teach, to hope that his miracles might touch them and those they've brought with them. And then there are the 12 disciples who get commissioned and sent out to become their own band of visiting preachers and healers and miracle workers. In all of these visits and visitors, what might we notice? How might their stories touch our stories today? A first thing might be that all these stories speak of people on the move, encountering new situations and meeting new people as they go. Throughout the Hebrew scriptures, which we adopted our Bible of the Old Testament, people are on the move. Whilst there are great moments of being settled, and whilst the mighty cities of like Jerusalem rise and flourish for a while, much of the Jewish experience from Genesis onwards involves travellers and journeys, arriving in new and unfamiliar places, meeting strangers. Sometimes it is the journey of just one person, like the lonely prophet Elijah, heading for a cave in the mountains. Sometimes the whole nation pack their belongings and move out as they escape the slavery of Egypt and wander the wilderness. Sometimes the journeys are chosen and become pilgrimage. Sometimes they are enforced as people of God, become refugees and asylum seekers, as they are carted off into exile and displaced by war and famine. Journeys and visits, offering hospitality and depending upon the kindness of others, are a constant biblical theme. It is a theme woven across the New Testament as well, and Matthew gives us more people on the move, paying visits and becoming visitors. Some of us will have lived in the same place for a very long time. Some of us will have travelled a great deal. But I suspect all of us can think of times when we, like those we meet in the Bible today, encountered new people, fresh situations, found the stability of our lives suddenly upended, undone, or reworked. Perhaps change came due to own choices. Perhaps it was the actions of others, maybe sickness, undid everything for us that we thought was safely settled. Or the suffering of someone else, maybe some enormous gift and blessing of glorious, big explosion, sorry about that, opportunity overtook us and transformed things for us. The new came upon us, change visited us, and we became visitors in our own folding future. A second thing our readings might be inviting us to notice is where God is to be found and what God is doing. Amidst all of our wanderings and wonderings, amidst the joys and challenges, the encounters and possibilities, the times we become visitors, and the times we show hospitality to others, what is God up to? We find that God is also a visitor in our readings. For Sarah and Abraham, the 3 strangers, turn out to be messengers from God, coming into their lives unexpectedly and telling them on a future they'd never imagined, a child they never thought they would have. This is a beautifully evocative story of how God visits us in surprising ways, often incognito and at first unnoticed, delivering a blessing that surprises us beyond our wildest imagination. Perhaps we've had experience with hindsight, that it is only afterwards and looking back that we glimpse ways in which we encounter and a moment have been venues for a visit from God, who creates and saves and recreates. This visiting God becomes all the more real as Jesus arrives on the scene. Now God becomes the ultimate visitor, the creator of all things, entering fully into the limits and risks of human life. God visits as Jesus enters every synagogue, steps across the threshold of every home that offers him hospitality. He walks into each and every marketplace. He walks the dusty roads, hikes that rocky hillsides, and he dangles his tired feet in the river and plays with the sand on the seashore. God visits as things get taught, as sickness gets healed, as hope is begun where once only despair hung heavy. Jesus is God in the flesh, blessing and challenging, calling and cajoling, noticing and loving. He ushers in God's new way of being with us and drawing us into communion with God. He shows us by living them out how God longs for us to live and love and believe. Jesus spends time in a small part of the world for just a few years, but the limits of time and space are undone at his death, resurrection and ascension. Set free from all limits, Jesus can be the visitor who makes his home forever with us all, wherever we are and wherever we go. And in Jesus, we discover that God visits us with a particular perspective and a powerful point of view. As Jesus walks his way from village to city, as he watches the crowds jostling to get near enough to hear him and maybe to be healed, we are told he had compassion for them, and because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Jesus sees the needs and his heart goes out to all. This is what God is up to, divine compassion, walking into our lives to meet us and to save us. It may be that today all is going really well for us and for those we know and share our lives with, but I suspect not everything may be simple and easy. Even the tiniest glimpse of our communities and of the nations tells us that all is not easy. And often things are far from peaceful and happy. Suffering and need are endemic across God's world. War and violence, poverty and exploitation are the backdrop to life for many millions. Neighbourhoods suffer from fear and deprivation. Jobs become less secure. Affordable homes hard to find and to hold on to. Many services we depend upon struggle to provide us with the care and resources we hope to find. Sickness can visit us unexpectedly and everything is overturned. The life of a congregation we love can suffer hardship and loss. Into all this reality come these stories of Abraham and Sarah receiving unexpected hope of the Son of God coming out not to demand and to crush, but to join creation in its need and longing and brokenness and embrace it with undying compassion and love. This brings us to a third and final word, a word of the Bible today for us. As God's compassion unfolds and works with and within creation, God calls and invites people to join us. Abraham and Sarah are visited at their camp because their story is part of the unfolding story of God's calling of a nation to be his chosen people. A light to shine in the world as a nation in love with holiness. Jesus sees the endless need around him and prays for help and for helpers. He gathers the 12 and they are sent out with his authority and instruction. They are not faceless numbers. They are unique and complicated individuals. Matthew wants to make sure that we know their names, that they become real characters in real life stories. Simon, known as Peter, his brother Andrew, James and John, son of Zebedee, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, the tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon, the Canaanian, and Jesus Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus. Real people, really called and commissioned and sent out in the name of the Son of God. Here is the wonder, here is the amazing truth. To that list, we add other names. They include the names of those whose faithfulness shaped something. Sorry, we're getting a bit... There is more about God being selective. Sorry, I think I've got that all wrong. Sorry, I'll get myself sorted in a minute. I do apologise for this. I've got it all sorted out. Yeah, here it is, I beg your pardon. I doubled over. So here is the wonder, here is the amazing truth. To that list, we could add other names. They will include the names of those whose faithfulness shaped something about us, women and men across the generations, who somehow showed us something of God, friends of Jesus, who helped us to become his friends too. Even more wonderfully, to that list, we add our own names. Of course, we'll be able to highlight our mistakes and our weaknesses, our failures and our faltering steps. But still, our names are part of the story of how God is saving and renewing all creation. In our own way, we too are sent. Each of us will have some particular calling that is for us to do. Each of us will have unique opportunities and gifts. And as we read today's texts in the Bible, they beckon us onwards into today and tomorrow. We can be answers to prayer as much as we offer the prayers. Jesus reveals the heart of God that is filled with compassion for all the world's needs. He calls us to see and feel, to love, to rage, for justice, and to act. The labours are few. We feel that often, I suspect, that even a few labours can do things. And as we do, let us give God the glory. Amen.